Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Thursday, September 24th. This is your daily Buckeye Fix. I'm Tom Orr. The first football Saturday of the Big Ten season is now 30 days away, and the game against Michigan kicks off in 79 days. The football season that is coming is going to mean a lot of things to a lot of people, but one of those things is money. Amateurism. Tens of millions of dollars in TV revenue for each conference school, but the lack of fans in the stands, cars in the parking lots, people buying food and drinks, that's still going to take a big cut out of every school's bottom line. Yesterday, we learned just how badly that would impact things in the athletic department at Ohio State. Buckeye Scoop beat reporter Tony Gerdeman joins me this morning. And Tony, there are a lot of people who are either going to be getting furloughed or taking pay cuts or open positions that just aren't going to be getting filled for a while.
Yeah, and as athletic director Gene Smith put it yesterday, basically every employee in the Ohio State Athletic Department is going to feel this in some form or fashion, whether it be a 5-day furlough for strength and conditioning coaches, or who knows, the 10-day furloughs. There's a 60-day furlough, or maybe some redeployments to other departments, and yeah, and we know the 5% salary reduction for Gene Smith and Ryan Day and Chris Holtman, things like that, where you try to get a little bit of a chunk of your recruitment and the losses that you're going to have, but you're pinching a lot of pennies to try to find millions, and it's just not that easy.
Yeah, that's that's tough. And I'm sure they don't want to furlough anyone, but the one thing that I thought was very interesting, there was just one line in the middle of that release that said the 4 staff members in the athletic department sports psychology and wellness services team will not be furloughed. And it was like, boy, that's a sign of the times right now. This has not been a great year for a lot of people, and that's a pretty good sign of the times right there. One of the things that Gene Smith talked about was the fact that a lot of this is still up in the air, and the exact numbers are still like there's nothing certain. I mean, in the same way that while you're figuring out your family budget this year, there's a bunch of, well, if this happens, then okay, then this is this is what this will look like, but we don't know if that's going to happen or not. Gene Smith is dealing with a lot of those same things, just with a few extra zeros on the end of that, on the end of those budget numbers. One of the big questions is they don't know how much they're getting from TV partners yet, and they have a lot of other things up in the air, like revenue for a men's basketball season. That's like, yeah, maybe. They don't know how many home games they're going to have. They don't know how many fans they're going to have in the stands. There's a lot that they don't know right now. That has to make it just impossible to plan. I mean, I know from just trying to run a household this year, it's like, yeah, this is not the easiest year when you don't know if there's going to be a football season, if there's going to be, a lot of people have jobs that are kind of hanging in the balance right now. This has to just be an absolutely impossible thing for him to try and do right now, because they don't know revenue. They don't know. I mean, the expenses are going to kind of change, but they don't want to cut too much, but they don't want to cut too little. This has just got to be an impossible position for them right now.
Yeah, and it's interesting that they still have to come out with this budget, and I think at one point he said, this is all meaningless, basically, because they know so little. Even going to not knowing if the fall sports that got canceled will even be able to play in the spring. If they can, that's going to cost money. If they can't, then you save money, and then you can allocate that somewhere else. Like they ended up saving money because of the last batch of spring sports getting canceled, and so they didn't have to send this team to California for a tournament, or this team to New Jersey for a tournament. So they actually finished okay and had money in the bank, so to speak. And now you don't know. He even mentioned the television for men's hockey. Like, you don't know what's going to happen there. You don't know how many, if it's just going to be conference games for any of your sports, for all of your sports, for which sports. It's just an impossible thing to plan for. I can't imagine the Big Ten doing it based on what we've seen of their planning capabilities. But to have Gene Smith, and if you ever want to see something interesting, go to like Ohio State's website and have the flow chart of the athletic department, where it's Gene Smith, and then there's like 200 people below him, And that gives you an idea of the size of the athletic department and why there is so much, furloughs here and furloughs there. 25 positions being eliminated entirely. That process began even back in January because they've been trying to downsize a little bit, or reallocate, or become more fiscally, I don't know, responsible. Maybe it would be a good word. And so that process has been ongoing, but obviously with the pandemic, it became much more immediate. And yeah, you can take some salaries from people, and at least then you know where that money is coming from, but you don't know how much you're spending. You don't know how much you're getting. You can make assumptions, and that's all of what this is. And do you get a prize for coming close? Is this, like, if you come within like 5% of this total number you get from the top line, if you're 40 million off, you have to choose a prize from the bottom line, unless it's 40 million in the good way, in which case here you're back at the top line again.
Yeah, the projected deficit right now is $107 million. That is not something that can be fixed just by furloughing a few staffers for a couple of weeks. But I mean, again, that number is not quite as bad as it may sound. They don't have any of that TV revenue figured in the budget yet. In a normal year, the TV revenue from football is in the neighborhood of $50 million. It will probably be less than that this year, just because they don't have as many games to televise. So all of those non-conference games that you're not watching. So therefore, they're not televising, and they're not selling commercials on those. So they're not probably going to get their full distribution from TV partners. But whether they end up with 40 million out of that 50 million or 45 million out of that 50 million, I mean, that's still going to make a big difference into that bottom line and take a big chunk out of that $107 million deficit they're kind of estimating right now. But how are they planning to cover whatever the rest of that hole is? How are they planning to dig out of that?
Yeah, that will be an internal loan from Ohio State. And as Gene Smith was asked, well, will Ohio State just, give you this money? Can't they just give it to you? And he's like, no, that's not that's not how things work here. So they will borrow it from Ohio State. He's hoping it'll be interest free, the loan. That's what he's going to be fighting for. But he'll see. And somebody else asked him, well, can't you just grab from like the endowments and things like that? And no, because these are all assigned to specific departments, and the interest that they raise go to facilitate things for those specific departments. So this will just be an issue where they borrow money from the university, which they do for building buildings and stuff. But he said this is the first time they've ever had to do it operationally. To, I don't want to say to stay afloat, but to stay afloat and to keep all 36 sports and every scholarship in line and available. Which, we've talked about this before, and kind of this is what they've been doing. They've been holding back on furloughs forever. They've been holding back on scholarship reductions or cutting any teams. And Gene Smith was adamant, like, that's not what we're going to do. We're not going to cut programs. We're not going to cut athletes. And that's why you have these other tough decisions, because they wanted to make sure they still had their 36 sports, because as he said repeatedly, it's about the student athlete and the student athlete experience. And so then, yeah, now you've got to pay for them. You've got to find a way to cover the 25 million for all of those scholarships, and the 3 million for the meals, and the 2 million for this and that. It's not cheap. But I guess in an era where so many schools are cutting sports and reducing things, it's good to see Ohio State doing this when they can just borrow money from themselves and pay it back over a period of time, because we know Ohio State is a monster. And I'm going to assume that things will eventually be back to normal, where they can write, a $12 million check a year to themselves, or whatever, and get this thing covered pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, Gene Smith talked about the fact that they are one of about 20 athletic departments in the country that are completely self-sufficient. And in fact, in a normal year, Ohio State's athletic department sends money towards the university. They give the university money. So that's because they generally are running a surplus, and that gets the extra money gets kicked over to the university in the form of a donation. So yeah, if Gene Smith is coming over hat in hand once, that's probably not a bad position to be in terms of convincing them to give them an interest-free loan just this once, since in the spirit of continuing the support that the athletic department has given the university in general over the previous few years. And one of the things that I thought was interesting, I looked through the the individual revenue lines that they had, and some of them are very conservative. That they'll make $1.1 million from basketball revenue this year, men's basketball revenue, and of course that's purely a guess. They don't know how many home games they're going to have. They don't know how many fans are going to be in the stands. They don't know what the TV revenue is going to be like. I mean, there's a million assumptions built into that. One of the other lines was $2 million in licensing royalties. They had that had that budgeted in as they'll make $2 million in licensing royalties. And you said this is a conservative estimate earlier. This is, I mean, how conservative is that? In 2003, after they won the national championship against Miami, they made $5 million in licensing royalties in 2003. And T-shirts and hats have not gotten any cheaper since 2003. So that number is probably, if Ohio State can pull off a national championship in football this year, that number probably is higher than $5 million and helps cut into that budget deficit even a little bit more. So just in case you needed a reason to for the athletic department to be rooting for the football team to do pretty well this fall, it could pay off in the balance sheet as well.
Yeah, and they also do save money in a sense by not having to field all of the concession workers or pay those companies that put the people there. But yeah, I'm sure they'd rather be taking in that $7 million a game, and rather than saving, I think like the $2 or $3 million by not having to pay those businesses. But yeah, it's just a monumental thing. Ohio State, the athletic department. Forget Ohio State. Just the athletic department, where, as you said, they give money to the university every year, and then you're like the one time the rainy day fund, hat in hand, and basically their OSU would be like, talk to the bank, go, we can set something up, but what happens like if it's a 30-year loan and OSU, the athletic department is a few years late on paying stuff. Does the university take the athletic department to court? How do you manifest this to make sure that the payments keep coming?
Yeah, can Ohio State repossess Ohio Stadium? I'm not sure that would work all that well. But yeah, I mean this is a really, I mean, the scope of the numbers we're talking about here is just a good reminder of the scope of Ohio State's athletic department. I mean, you think about the first time, if you were a little kid and went to Ohio Stadium and it was like, holy smokes, this place is huge and there's a lot of people here, and the size of the operation and the size of everything and just the scale of it. I think if you've been going to games for 10, 20, 30 years, now it's just kind of like, well, yes, this is what it's like. And you have stopped thinking about the scale of it probably. But yeah, between the parking revenues and all of those cars, it's whatever, $20 a car or whatever it is now. And all of those people buying $8-10 beers inside the stadium, and $4 hot dogs and $5 boxes of popcorn and $4 bottles of water. I mean, all of that stuff adds up, let alone the tickets, let alone the donations that let you buy the tickets, let alone the luxury boxes. I mean, there's just so much money that $7 million on a football Saturday, that's what they typically bring in. So yeah, the numbers are pretty big. And when you don't have those fans in the stands, you're not parking those cars and you're not selling those concessions, yeah, the losses add up pretty quickly.
I do wonder how much money they will make from ads in the stands. If you can't have people there, those aren't just going to be empty seats. There's going to be something in there to produce revenue. And every year there seems to be more ads in Ohio Stadium. I'm wondering now if they start appearing in the stands and A deck and areas like that, and is stuff like that figured in yet? Is that stuff still being worked out? They don't have much time, so they better get this stuff figured out pretty quickly.
Can they sell cardboard cutouts of people? I mean, like the baseball teams are doing. I mean, I'm sure there are some Ohio State super fans that would pay quite a bit of money to have their smiling cardboard faces sitting in the front row and pointing at the camera. My favorite moment of the call on Wednesday came when Gene Smith was asked about his work on the Big Ten's television committee. And Gene Smith told the reporter who asked the question that he wasn't on the television committee and he wasn't sure where that rumor came from. He said, it's probably something that someone on Twitter made up. I mean, Twitter and yes, we do know Twitter. I was driving the car at the time, so I couldn't look it up, but I'm listening and I'm like, I think that came from somewhere more official than just some random dude on Twitter. Like what? And Bill Rabinowitz, I think from the Dispatch, was the one who came on a question or two later and confirmed that, yes, in fact, Tony, where did the faulty information about Gene Smith being on the Big Ten's TV committee come from?
Yeah, that actually came from a Big Ten release.
Hmm.
And when Gene was told of that, and Bill Rabinowitz then said, "I think this explains a lot," and Gene was like, "I'm not going there. Like, I'm not going to say anything else about that. Let's go ahead and take the next question." Like, he had wanted no part of getting into the Big Ten there.
Tony, would you like to go there?
Does it surprise you that information from the Big Ten that should be vetted and accurate is then not accurate? Tom, would you like to go there?
Um, what I would say is that the Big Ten brand has been extremely consistent over the past few months, and they have been extremely on brand. And even in their moments of success and seeming progress, they continue to be extremely on brand. Earlier in the week, we got to talk to Kerry Combs and the cornerbacks as we're sort of starting the ramp up to the actual college football season. Um, that's I, it felt. I think I said this to you on Buckeye Weekly earlier this week. That was one of those like, hey, this is starting to feel like football season. We're having like midweek player and coach interviews. Like this is all right. Like it feels like we're getting here somewhere. So, Tony, let everyone know who we'll be talking to a little bit later in the week and what they can expect to find at BuckeyeScoop.com.
Yeah, on Friday we will talk to offensive coordinator Kevin Wilson, who is also the tight ends coach. So I assume we will be speaking with Ohio State's tight ends, such as Luke Farrell, Jeremy Ruckert, Jake Hausman, perhaps Cade Stover. And this year, I think the annual question is this the year of the Ohio State tight ends? I'm sure that will be covered repeatedly everywhere on the Ohio State beat. But it'll be interesting to talk to Kevin Wilson. It's always fun to talk to him because he gives you good answers, and he gives you a lot of you get a lot of bang for your buck. And so he'll answer questions about the offense as a whole. I'm sure he'll be talking about Justin Fields, the young receivers, all of that. And so we'll have that, certainly have a running update on everything that gets said on Friday, and who knows what'll come out of it. But yeah, Tom, it's here. It's you said when you said 30 days away, it's like, gosh, that's so long. But once you're in the middle of it, like once you're in the midst of it, it's the season as far as when you're covering it.
Oh yeah, I mean we're basically if this was a normal year, we would probably be standing outside a hotel watching football players walk into a hotel probably like next Tuesday or so. I mean we're kind of at that point of fall camp now, so and during a normal year that's like all right, season's right around the corner. Well, guess what that means? Guess what? Season's right around the corner. So if you are thinking about joining BuckeyeScoop.com, this would be a pretty darn good time to do it because you're now your first 30 days on the site that you would sign up for and get when you join. Hey, guess what? That will include an Ohio State football game day. So that's pretty great. You should consider doing that. You can sign up at BuckeyeScoop.com. We have an incredible team of insiders covering recruiting and obviously Tony and I on the beat. And we've got Ross Fulton doing X's and O's and just an incredible, incredible team of insiders covering Buckeye sports from just about every angle you can imagine. Plus our incredible Ask the Insiders board, lots of really lively, fun conversations there. And it is basically ask us anything, anytime, and we will give you our best answer. Today is a Thursday, so that means it is a Bill Green chat day on the Ask the Insiders board. Bill Green is one of our legendary recruiting analysts and has covered recruiting for a very, very, very long time and is full of extremely entertaining and uh, interesting stories about covering recruiting over the years and great recruiting stories that you probably haven't heard, as well as the 2021 2022 2023 classes that are kind of coming up for Ohio State. And there's a lot of good and exciting news there as well. So this would be a great time to join at buckeyescoop.com. You can sign up right there. And also make sure you check out all of our podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud. You can find us there. Just search Buckeye Scoop on any of those spots. And you can subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating and review. We appreciate all of those things. Thank you guys for listening. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.